Pulse School on RealAgriculture.com is brought to you by BASF.
Hey, Kara Oosterhuis here with RealAgriculture.com. I am back here today with another Pulse School episode, and I have here with me Chuck Penner of LeftField Commodities. How's it going today?
Pretty good, Kara. How about you?
Oh, not too bad. So we're here today for a bit of an update. It's been a while since we have talked markets and a little bit of an update on what's going on in the pulse markets. Let's start on one of the probably the most widespread one, and that would be peas. What's going on there?
Well, there's actually not a whole lot going on right now. I mean, the summer is generally a time when pulse markets, pea markets, lentils, all of them actually kind of go through a bit of a lull. And largely that's because either farmers are not really selling. They may have sold most of their product already, so they may not have much left. But also buyers are kind of waiting to see how things turn out. So they tend to be sitting on the sidelines too. This year we've got that in spades. And for some other reasons as well too. So what we have in the pea market is, of course, right now the elephant in the room is trying to figure out what kind of yields and quality. It's not just a yield picture right now, because the size of peas, all of those kind of things will be affected by drought as well too. And so it's trying to sort that out. And boy, there's a lot of guessing games going on there about the yields, and everybody's at least should be ratcheting down their yield estimates now, just because it's pretty ugly. What we've had in peas, especially in yellow peas, is we've had China, who's buys 80% plus of our pea crop, and they have already purchased quite a bit earlier in the year. They've purchased quite a bit of their needs, at least for the first few months of the next marketing year. And so again, they're sitting on the sidelines a little bit right now, but at the same time, even farmers who have peas available, they're sitting back too and just waiting, because they're bullish. They think the markets are going to go higher, and there's some pretty good reasons to think that way. And also they don't know what they're going to have for this year's crop. So everybody's, it's a little bit of a standoff right now, and nobody's willing to blink. But so it may take a little while for some new price direction to show up. So people might ask, well, geez, we got a drought. Like what? Why aren't prices going through the roof, right? And it's because everybody's just kind of sitting and waiting. And like I said, China has coverage for the next few months. It may take a little while longer before the reality of that situation starts to kick in, and then that's when we'll see some action. And we were already pretty bullish on the pea market before. Stats Canada said acreage will be down, especially for green peas. Green pea acres are down probably somewhere around 30% or so. And so we've already been fairly bullish, even if we would have had average yields. And of course, now it's, okay, how far below average do we go? Are kind of the yield guesses now. So, and the way that the market, the crops are just continuing to deteriorate, they're basically past the point of no return now. Even if you got rains, it might save some yields, but it's not going to boost yields, put it that way. And so it's how far down do we go, and then how do we sort that out in terms of getting supplies to China? The other aspect was just quickly with respect to China is they've been buying roughly, some estimates anyway, about half of the peas that they bought last year, which was about 3 million tons. About half of them were for the feed market. And so there's lots of questions about how much feed they're going to need this next year. There are some questions whether they're going to need as much next year as they bought this last year. But we don't have many peas to supply them anyway, so it's not like it's going to turn into a glut kind of a situation, or we don't know how to get rid of them or anything like that.
And when we're talking exports, of course, when it comes to pulses, you have to think India too. What's going on over there?
Well, in India, it's not so much about the peas because basically they've shut the door on peas. I think the odds are pretty low that they're going to come in and buy any meaningful volumes of peas. They might buy some greens. They have some room under their rules and regulations to buy a few green peas, but yellow peas, I'd be surprised to see them come in even earlier. Like for the last who knows how many months, I haven't. In my estimates or forecasts for next year, I haven't penciled in any real demand for India. It's not like it's needed. We don't need India to buy our peas. We have enough, especially if we have less this year. We have enough markets for that. That would add some extra demands and some extra upside, I suppose. For lentils, it's still a picture in flux. It's a little bit of a regulatory nightmare there right now because the Indian government has said that all participants in the value chain, whether you're a retailer, a wholesaler, a distributor, an importer, the most you can hold of pulses is 200 tons. So imagine trying to ship a 60,000 ton vessel of lentils to India right now. It just can't be done. So it's essentially shut that down. Now the traders in India are quite strenuously protesting that, and they're meeting with government officials. And there is some history to say that Indian government has backed down at times, backed away from those kind of decisions. So I would expect that will happen at some point. So that would at least allow the trade to continue. The other piece is this 30% or 33% import tariff that they have on lentils. And even that, people I talk to in India have said they really have very low supplies. So prices there are staying pretty strong, well above their minimum support prices. So their prices there are staying quite strong. And the Indian government has this balancing act always of trying to support farmers with higher prices, but also to keep consumers happy with lower prices. So it's this balancing thing. So if lentil prices there get too out of hand, they will need to open the door to more imports with lower tariffs and getting rid of some of these regulatory things.
Okay, and what about chickpeas? I understand that the acreage across Western Canada it's quite a bit of a smaller number than some of the other pulses. However, the export markets are still one we really pay attention to. Do you want to talk about that?
Pakistan is our biggest customer, and also the U.S. And the U.S. crop is absolutely suffering too. It tends to be grown more in Montana and the Pacific Northwest, and there the drought has been probably even worse than here. So I think the U.S. will be back in as a good sized buyer again. But chickpea prices everywhere, Mexico, India, all of these places, chickpea prices have been rising. So well, if we have a smaller crop, which we will this year, much smaller crop, that's a pretty friendly market too.
And sorry, I know I'm bouncing around everywhere here, but back to lentils. What sort of forecast are we looking at there? Like you said with peas, you're looking at in a couple months once China kind of figures their stuff out, there might be a leap in prices. What are you looking at for lentils? When could that bump up?
Well, I think that could start to move a little bit earlier because I don't know how much coverage some of these importers have for over the fall months. And so even if India is kind of there's a lot of uncertainty there, and they may not be big buyers quite yet. Places like Turkey, places like the Emirates, some of these other countries will be back in. The Turkish crop was not great this year, so we think that they will be back in as buyers. Right now, there's just a lot of confusion and redirection of lentil cargoes because of this news from India. So there's a lot of disruption right now, but I think we'll start to see some friendly news there. And the other thing from the StatsCan acreage data is that green lentil acres were down considerably. Overall, lentil acres were flat, but red lentil acres went up a little bit, and green lentil acres, especially large greens, went down. And so I think that side of the market, that portion of the market, has more upside room yet too.
And what about Fabas? That's something that you don't typically see in the drought areas. That's, across the prairies, kind of the more wetter areas because they need that moisture. Are they quite impacted price-wise? What's going on right now?
Well, right now, Fabas are, I think StatsCan said there was 126,000 acres or so of Fabas, which is the second largest we've had on record. But just to put that in perspective, the Australian crop is probably about 500,000 tons, and so what happens over there really dominates that portion of the market. So their crops are looking good. Their winter crops that they've got in the ground now are looking pretty good in most areas. So I think their Faba crop will be pretty solid. So they can supply all of that Egyptian market and then some. So it's really, I mean, we're starting to see some news now about some domestic processing on Fabas, and that's really what our market here needs to give it some stability and so on. But even here, our Fabas, they're in the areas a little more central prairies, or maybe even in the northern prairies. But even there, the yields look like they're not going to be great. Alberta, maybe a little better, central Alberta, but most of Saskatchewan looking really rough. But yeah, they might escape the worst of it.
Yeah, absolutely. And of course, when you're looking, like you said, a lot of producers are bullish across the board right now with most pulses. What are you recommending? Do you think producers should be buying some of those futures right now?
Well, see, right now with any crop, frankly, it wouldn't help if I told farmers to sell anything, because they're not going to. But even if they were willing to or able to, I would tell them to be patient this year. Wait a little bit further into the year, because we still don't know how low the yields are going to go, and that demand is going to show up more into the year. I mean, prices right now are historically high, but no, I think pretty much across the board, I'm friendly toward pulses.
Okay, sounds good. Is there anything else you'd like to add?
Well, it's my heart just goes out to these guys who are losing crops and that kind of thing. People like me look at it in terms of averages, or across the prairies or things like that, and it just doesn't capture the the individual impact that some of these people are facing. And my heart just goes out to them, that hopefully that they'll have some crop to sell and have some decent prices, and then looking forward to next year's crop, because that's always what you talk about in a year like this as well. Next year, I think the tightness in the markets and the overall pulse demand is going to be pretty positive, pretty friendly for the market even going forward.
Absolutely, and on the moisture side too, it's everyone's saying it might be too late for rain this year, but let's get some soil or get some moisture in the
Absolutely.
soil. Absolutely. Okay, thank you very much for your time, Chuck.
All right.